It's the Jim and Terry Show, coming to you from the Hobbit Hole studio in Bobcaygeon. I'm Terry. Jim's still missing. Doing research, I hear. He's going to submit a bill for gas expenses, hotel expenses, and charge it to the Jim and Terry Show for research. R&D. Who said the Jim and Terry Show are a bunch of retired guys with no budget and no cares? Jim, you're welcome to submit the bills, but no guarantee on the budget and support from the bookkeeper of the Jim and Terry Show. Who would that be? Maybe we need to find out. We have no producer, no budget, no R&D, but Jim is doing his best to supply us with fresh information from his holiday. In the meantime, from the Hobbit Hole, things that are mysterious to me, religion and science. Why is this coming up now? Oh, a couple of things that have lodged in my mind. One would be the claim that either the Bible or perhaps the Quran are science compatible or are in some form science textbooks or claim to have revelation of divine truth, whether that can be in the laws of food, what is allowed and what is not, and why that might be. Or it could be in other forms in which they claim the sequence of the days in Genesis might be defensible in some way with science and what we know. However conflicted that seems to be at the moment in my mind, the claims that the Bible is science, that the Quran is science or has science or is compatible with science, seems to be a bit of a stretch to me. It might be fairer to say that science attempts to explain reality, whereas religion is an attempt to dodge reality, or construct your own version of reality that is not necessarily always incompatible or compatible with the reality that we see. So where am I going with this and what am I going to do? Well, let's start off with a little quote and a little soundbite and see where it goes. Here we go.
Whenever I give a lecture, I show pictures from, let's say, from the Hubble Space Telescope, a picture of a cluster of galaxies. I mean, the poetry of it, the poetry, well, we've both talked about the poetry of science, but the spiritual inspiration you get from looking at a picture of a cluster of galaxies located 5 billion light years away from us, where every dot in that picture is a galaxy. The light from those stars left those stars before our sun and Earth formed, which means that now many of the stars in that picture don't exist anymore. And if there were civilizations around those stars, each of those galaxies contains 100 billion stars. Any civilization that existed around those stars no longer may exist. It just opens your mind to wonder. And so I actually feel very strongly that while science per se may not provide the direct consolation, it can and it should provide a spiritual, not only wonder, but it should provide a consolation. Look, when we talked about this last night, we tell our kids fairy tales to console them. We tell them to make their life fun. We talk about Santa Claus, the Easter Bunny, but then we decide that, you know what, it's better for them to know how the world really works. And it may be a little less consoling, but in fact, knowing that they're in control of their lives actually is empowering. And many of us, if you're a good parent, you want to teach your kids how to become empowered. And yet, but religion, and in religion, they're often talked about the flock, the children. It effectively treats you like a child. It says, it's better for you to believe a fable than reality. And often when I end a lecture on cosmology, I point out that the two things modern cosmology has taught us is that first, you're much more insignificant than you ever thought, and two, that the future is miserable. But that should make you feel good, not bad, because it further enhances exactly what you were talking about. We are so lucky to be alive today and endowed with a consciousness where we, for whatever fortuitous reasons, on a random star in a random galaxy in the middle of nowhere, we are able to evolve a consciousness, live on a relatively quiescent planet. And so I actually think science can provide a real consolation by saying, look, once you accept reality, it's liberating.
Well, that is sure a mouthful of ideas, or a head full. Maybe we need to go back and look at it a bit. A couple of things that struck me. One is the notion that as good parents, we like to console our children. Nothing wrong with that. I like the word console. It's sort of offering some explanation that brings comfort to our kids. Our kids, wow, remember, as infants, everything goes into the child's mouth. That is their world. Is it hot, cold, hard, soft? What's the texture? We explore the world as infants through our mouths. That's a heck of a thought. Some stuff is okay, some stuff is not. So we teach our children what is acceptable to go in their mouths, what is not. Then we start our process of creating children who will be able to discern what goes into their mouth and what is good and healthy. And that includes all sorts of foods and nutritional items, as well as acquiring a sweet tooth. And I'm one to readily admit to succumbing to the indoctrination of chocolate. That is my weakness. Yes, in through our mouths we discern sweet and sour, the bitterness of life, the metaphor of bitterness as in sour grapes. How about lemons? And then we have our expressions, make lemonade if you've got lemons. We have ways of making consoling words to our kids. When they move from infancy to toddler, puttering around the living room, grabbing onto furniture, pulling themselves up, and exploring the world from their feet, with their hands, there's still things that we like to console our children with. And that's usually in the realm of the fairy tales, the Tooth Fairy, Santa Claus, the Easter Bunny, and on it goes. Because life for a child from an infant through their toddler years is a pretty scary place. A place of all kinds of interest, but scary, because it can be harmful. Physically harmful, mentally harmful. And so parents, well-meaning parents, provide consolation, provide stories to help the world be less scary, to help their children's minds be more exploratory and open-ended, open-minded, dream dreams, explore colors, explore the world around you, because it is a magnificent thing to do. Somewhere along the line, we take our mythologies and they become dogma. Usually that's in the form of some kind of religious instruction, whether that is at home, through homeschooling, or through your Sunday school, or your mosque, or your Hebrew school, your temple. Wherever this takes place, it is where the things that we cannot provide evidence for becomes accepted as part of our membership club. Like a secret handshake, we all say the Lord's Prayer, we all recite the same prayers in Hebrew. I had a professor who always claimed that heaven is going to be full of Hebrew speakers, therefore we should master Hebrew while we have the chance before we pass on and are forced to learn it. I think that's what he was trying to get at. It was a way of being motivated to do language studies. However, dogma is the acceptance of things without evidence. Did my professor have evidence that Hebrew was the language of heaven? None at all. He was basing it upon the Old Testament being penned in Hebrew, and the Old Testament being the foundation for the New Testament. After all, Jesus was a Jew. So it made sense to some extent. And to that extent, he communicated a mythology to us in our seats in seminary. Lots of stuff to question now that we have more critical thinking skills in us. We don't have to accept the dogma that is being introduced, I guess is a nice way of saying it, introduced to us. But dogma really is mythology being foisted as science or pseudoscience. And it's a dangerous thing when we confuse religious dogma with science. They are not the same. And We can go back and look at the ancient texts and we can rationalize it to some extent, saying the Bible is a science book, the Quran is a science book. Look at all the science. Look at the numbers. Look at the beasts of the ocean, the sea. Look at how we have all this knowledge, and it's in the Quran, it's in the Bible, it's in the Old Testament. And I would say, really? Okay. Let's examine that. And I think upon closer inspection, using the magnifying glass of science, scientific inquiry, the science methodology, the test, the prove, the measure, the quantify, that some of the stuff is patently mythology on its in its core element. On surface, it's obviously demonstrably false, but in its essence, it is also measurably, quantifiably fake news, which is not unreasonable given the age of these documents, given what people knew. Yes, there has been wisdom in all human endeavors for thousands of years, but to extol the documents in the particular religious traditions that I have referred to as being the communication of the divine, by the divine, for the divine purposes that we must repeat, rinse, repeat, recycle, reduce, reuse. Well, I don't know, whether it's the Norse mythologies, Roman mythologies, Greek mythologies, Hebrew mythologies, Christian mythologies, they all have the notion that you cannot prove the claims, regardless of the age of the documents. You might be able to source a document and test it to be within a generation of the time of Jesus. That doesn't mean the contents are true, and that needs to be proven. The big claim in the past few weeks has been that the red heifer is going to be sacrificed. That fulfills something in the Old Testament. It is looking forward for the Christians in the New Testament, second coming, or the first, depending on whether you're Jewish or Christian. And if you're a Muslim, maybe that is not a good thing because you want to avoid the claims of Judaism and the claims of Christianity. After all, if they are right, where does that leave Islam? Science, trying to explain reality. Religion, trying to escape from it. Two different points of view. Pick your pill, red or blue. You gotta embrace reality or dodge it. The Jim and Terry Show from the Hobbit Hole Studio in Bob Cajun. Bye-bye for now.